fixed, non-trivial period of time and depreciates with time. That is, the longer you have it, the less useful it is. It doesn't, therefore, make sense to change the amount of durables you have frequently because there's only some period of time over which you can use them. So if you're changing them frequently, you're wasting some of that time. And it's cheap to use them while they're still working. So the more uses you can find for them, the better off you are. But they only last for a relatively short period of time. So if you can't find lots of uses for them during that time, it's going to be a waste. So you would sort of think if you buy a big airplane, right, and you're an airplane company, if it ends up sitting on the ground somewhere, you would say, God, it's a waste that I spent all this money on this airplane and I'm not using it, right? On the other hand, so one example of that is the airplanes. Another example of it would be where you live. So it's, if you move to a place, you might gradually get bored of it. But it's really, really costly to constantly be changing where you're living, right? That is, it's an intertemporal complement. If you're living in one place today, it makes it more attractive to be living there tomorrow relative to if you were not living there today. On the other hand, an intertemporal substitute, which we'll also call a storable or exhaustible, Michael, hey Michael, Michael Wayne, what could you describe in your words what it characterizes as a storable or exhaustible commodity?
It's essentially like the opposite, I guess, of a durable.
Yeah.
So instead of having a fixed amount of time you can use it, you can be stored forever.
Yeah.
And storable. But then there's only you can only use it once. So
Or a fixed number of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So a storable good lasts forever basically, but you can only use it a fixed number of times. So it depreciates with use rather than with time. So I said that with the airplane you'd say it's a waste not to use the airplane. On the other hand, you would say that if I gorge myself on a lot of potato chips that I have at home that I could store up somewhere, that it's a waste to have eaten all those potato chips, right? Because I could have used them more sparingly on a time when I really wanted them, right? So you can even see in the language we use in everyday life that what we call a waste or not reflects exactly this distinction between storable and durable. Sometimes it's a waste not to use something, other times it's a waste to use something. And which of those is right depends on whether the good is storable or durable. With storable goods, it's very easy to change things over the short run, but it's expensive to change them over the long run, right? You can do more for a short period of time, but if you try to do more for a long period of time, it doesn't really work. And I think a good example of this is vacations. So if vacations become more costly for a short period of time, maybe the price of oil has gone up or something, you'll probably wait and take a vacation later, right? Because you don't need to have a vacation absolutely right now, right? You need to have it at some point. But on the other hand, if the price of vacations went up forever, right, you're going to take a vacation regardless, right? Because it's very costly. You'll get really exhausted if you never take a vacation. Okay, so let me go through some standard examples of factors, and by factors we mean things that are inputs to the production process, which are storable versus durable. So first, some very durable things that are usually thought to be very durable are entry by a firm into a new country or an industry, right? Because it usually often takes a long time to enter and a long time to exit an industry. Similarly, education takes a long time to get, and it lasts you a long time. And so if you're educated today, it's much easier to be educated tomorrow than it is if you're not educated today, right? It's not, you can't like change your education every day. Culture for a society is usually thought to be very durable. Political, social, and economic institutions are thought to be very durable factors. Somewhat less durable, but still quite durable, are machines, job experience, physical plants, as well as production procedures, personal relationships with other people, your memory. Those are all thought to be quite durable, but not as durable. Then there are what we would call variable factors, which are ones which are equally storable and durable. Unskilled labor can usually be hired and fired quite quickly, but it's also not storable. Bulky raw materials. Advertising usually depreciates very quickly, so if I advertise a good, it usually doesn't have much long-term effect on the consumers, but it also, it's not like because I advertise to you today that detracts from my ability to advertise to you tomorrow either. Anything which can be rented for a short period of time and doesn't need to be bought and installed is also variable, right? So even if there's a big bulky factory, but I can like come in and use the factory for one day and then leave, that's not really a durable, right? Yeah?
So I'm just a bit confused. How does advertisement depreciate with use?
What?
How does advertisement depreciate with use?
I don't think it really does. That's why I was saying it's variable. It's really, I mean, these are things that are neither durable nor storable. They're like in between.
So not both, but neither?
Well, it could either be equally both, or it could be neither. There's no real. It's like one's positive and one's negative. So whenever you're at zero, that means that they're equally balanced, right? Somewhat storable goods include inventory. So a company often holds like a reasonable sized inventory of goods, and if the price falls, they'll increase that inventory. If the price rises, they'll decrease that inventory. And so it acts as a storable good. Of course, they don't want to store it forever because it's somewhat costly to store. But Amazon, for example, has a significant inventory of all sorts of different goods. And those are storable for them. Favors are also somewhat storable. So, if you've done something nice for someone, they usually owe you back, right? And that's a somewhat storable factor. Another example of a storable factor might be consumer goods that are no longer available. So, if there's some candy that you really liked that is not available anymore, that's probably somewhat storable for you because you only have a certain amount of it left, and you have to be careful about how to use it. Very storable, sort of the most storable goods, are exhaustible resources like oil for the whole economy, because those are sort of like sitting in the ground ready to be taken out. Joe Farrell, who's a famous economist, once said to me that producing oil is like producing money by taking it out of the ATM, right? So it's not like you're really producing anything, right? You're just pulling it out of the ground. And oil, gas, copper are examples of that. Probably the most storable goods are money, because if you use money today, you can't use it tomorrow, and it stores very, very well. Or a great bottle of wine, which actually gets better as you let it age. Okay. So why does all of this matter? Well, there's a key principle in economics called Le Chatelier's principle, which actually comes from chemistry, which says that the more things you can adjust, the more that you react to things that happen. So supply is going to shift more if you're able to adjust more factors of production. And this is independent of whether the relevant factor of production is a substitute or a complement for the thing whose price changes. So for example, imagine that the price of gasoline rises, right? What's something that's a complement for gasoline? Well, the amount that you travel, right? And when the price of gasoline rises, you're probably going to reduce the amount that you travel because it's a complement. On the other hand, buying a clean car is a substitute for gasoline, right? But in both of these cases, you're going to reduce your consumption of gasoline more if you're able to reduce the number of miles you drive or increase the cleanness of your car, right? So the more you can adjust these factors, regardless of whether they're substitutes or complements, the more you will react in terms of the number of amount of gas you buy to the increase in the gas price. And this is exactly Le Chatelier's principle. The more things you can adjust, the more you react. And it's really the driving force behind our analysis of duration. So supply is going to be more elastic over time frames when more adjusts. And the key question is what things you can adjust relative to the market. So remember that I said that there's no problem having a big old factory if you can rent it for a single day, right? It's only if you're forced to keep that factory and you can't immediately resell it for just as much as you bought it for that it's actually durable from your perspective, right? And so if a durable which can be rented cheaply for a short period of time is not really a durable. And a storable, which, like your candy, which you could easily purchase in the market, hadn't gone out of circulation, or which you could easily sell back to someone else at the price, is not really a storable, right? So everything is relative to how you can exchange the thing. So in this sense, I think it's often, though certainly not always the case, that factors are more often durable than storable. So from now on, we're going to run with this assumption and assume that more things can be adjusted in the long than in the short run. But again, that's definitely not always the case. And everything that we're going to say is going to be exactly opposite in the opposite case. But I'm going to go with this because it's the one that's emphasized in the textbook and it's sort of the most common case considered in economics. Okay. So we can define runs then as reactions at the supply curves over different runs represent literally what the supply curve would be if the run of production is of a certain length. That is, if the duration over which you expect to be producing whatever quantity you're producing is whatever it is. So what that really means is each curve, the short run, the long run, the medium run curves, correspond to how you would react to a price change which was expected to last for a certain period of time. So a short run curve says, how much would I change my production if I knew that the price was going to increase for exactly 1 year, say. And the medium might represent how much I would change it if I was expecting the change in price to last for 5 years. And the long run might represent if I expected there to be a 20 or 30 year duration change in price. So the longer the duration or run of production, the more durables you're going to want to adjust over that period, right? And so usually we identify the various runs with which factors are possible to adjust over the relative run. And let me give you a standard classification, though there are many different classifications that people give. Often we think that in the short run, variable factors like unskilled labor and raw materials can be adjusted. In the medium term, things like plant size, production methods, the sort of moderately durable commodities can be adjusted. And then in the long run, new firms can enter.